We're just about to go live on YouTube. Hold on.
Do you want to turn it sideways so you're the same aspect ratio as him? Okay. How was yours is that? Aren't you glad you have a full mic right here?
All right.
Here we go.
Welcome to the program. Thank you very much. Charles Moscowitz here. And I am joined by Adam Weiss. Adam is...
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You are with the PR firm AMW in New York. You represent a lot of conservative thinkers across the board. And you've got a pretty good beat on what's happening in the conservative movement, especially in these times where we're sort of redefining ourselves in the wake of that last election. Now, the thing that caught my attention, Adam, is that, like you, I was very influenced by the late Rush Limbaugh and listening to his program back when I was doing a job that required a lot of driving and a lot of time in the car. I fell in love with talk radio anyway, but Rush Limbaugh had a very unique voice. And so I'd like to start, because he's now in his death, he's being demonized by the left. They're celebrating, they're breaking out the champagne. I'd like you to just talk a little bit about the influence that Rush had on you and what you think of him.
I mean, that was, when I was around, I started getting involved, loving politics at about 16. I enjoyed watching these conventions during around, I think it was 88. So it was the Dukakis Bush. And I just enjoyed both sides I was watching when I was 16 or so, and ideologically trying to figure out who I was as a young person. And then I just decided, well, it's conservative, Republican politics, conservatives sound better. And then I got involved in the political party in New York State, which in New York State, they have many different parties. So they have more than just Republican. Conservative. I registered as conservative. I've always been a registered conservative in New York, which is kind of like in New York State, they do it like the Parliament, the European Parliament type style, or the Israeli Parliament, where they have the Likud, and they have all these minor parties that can make a difference in a local election. And somewhere along the line, I was later on, during going to college, I worked for the town of Brookhaven in Long Island, and I used to drive seniors to the doctor's office. It was a service they provided. They would drive seniors to go there shopping and doctor's office. And I came across this loud guy who was funny and witty and engaging and all at once, but yet he would talk about politics. I was like, how is this guy talking about politics, doing it in a funny, charismatic way? I'd play, and I'd play when I was driving the scenes around, I'd play Howard Stern in the morning, and I'd play Rush in the afternoon. And they'd kind of the seniors would get a little upset, I'd tell, and I was only young, so I didn't really kind of thought it was not that big of a deal that I would play Howard, but it was like back then it was the real Howard, man. This guy, he was off the rails.
Oh, sure.
He wasn't politically correct like he is now. So it was like Howard uncensored, and so they would look at me like, can you turn that down a little bit, please? Turn that down. But Rush, the people would listen to him. Most of them didn't know who they were. And they'd go, hey, he's interesting. And then I get him on the next drive a week later and say, can you play that Rush guy again? And I'd play him. And then, people would, so anybody who would listen to Rush would get him. And they'd get him right away, and they would change minds, and he would engage the audience. So, later on after that, I was love politics. I started a group called the Young Conservatives of Long Island, Suffolk. And, out of nowhere, I got a letter from Rush Limbaugh. I never reached out to him. I don't know how he found me. And it just was beautiful letters. I want to wish you luck, Adam, in your endeavors in the Young Conservatives. And, reach out to me anytime. And it was like, wow, Rush Limbaugh wrote me a letter out of nowhere in the stationery. So I wrote him back, and we became a little bit of a pen pal. So it was just amazing. And at that point, he probably had 200 stations. And you just think about it, a larger than life figure like Rush found the local conservative club, Young Conservative Club, and wrote me a letter. So it shows what a decent fellow he was, just to found me. And, later on I became friends with his producer, Bill Snerdley, James Golden. And Rush influenced me because he let you articulate your message in a friendly way and an engaging way, and not a sharp, there were other radio hosts that were sharp and yelling. Remember the old Bob Grant?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I've always had a kind of a mellow personality when I engage with people. And I think that's just a better method to win people over, because
Yeah.
If you engage and you debate and you do it in a calm voice and you don't attack someone personally, you can ideologically disagree and base it on points and principles, but not hit somebody direct. And Rush would do that. And over the years, he was so effective. They would take him out of context. They would clip his videos and say he's making fun of women. And he'd do funny bits on feminazis and all these other little bits on environmental wackos. But after a while, when they left, just like they do now, when they find someone effective, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? She's effective. So what do? The hit jobs come from the media. Same thing they did to Rush. And Rush couldn't be like the original. And we can look back and Rush was like the original Trump, or the original,
He did. He set the stage. In fact, Trump acknowledged that in many ways.
And I think that Trump learned a lot of his, fighting style and a lot of his, points from Rush, because, I certainly did. And I certainly,
me too.
Yeah, we all learned, how to debate, and Rush did it, and he never did it. He was never mean spirited to anybody. And even when his liberals called his show, he was kind to them.
He put them up front. He would bring the liberal on first, and he would debate them. And look, he could be a little bit on the edge in terms of sometimes insulting and whatnot, but the point is, I don't think that he was doing anything different than, in a way, liberals and the left had always done, except they couched it in sophistic sounding, indirect, language, with a British accent, but Rush would lay it right out there. I mean, the left went berserk with Rush, and particularly claiming it's something against women because he referred to the National Organization of Women as feminazis. Now, that's political commentary. I mean, if he wanted to be polite about it, like the left would do, he could say, well, the National Organization of Women has embraced a philosophy that's analogous to the National Socialists. But, he basically laid it out there and he said, look, they're philosophically like the Nazis.
But that's why he was so effective, because he threw a little shock jock in there, right?
Exactly.
The Nazis, the environmental wackos, the Clinton scandals he'd go off on. So that's what, if he spoke in philosophical terms and put you to sleep, it wouldn't grow the audience of middle American like he did. That's what, he spoke to the average person across America, and he played a part in a lot of these elections. In '94, when the Republicans won the first time in 54 years, I think it was. So it was probably because of Rush. I mean, he was just badgering principles that, the Republicans needed to fight. He articulated the message, over the years better than any congressman. Maybe Newt Gingrich was up there with him, right? But can you think of a senator or a congressman who articulated the conservatism?
No. And I think he launched, in a way, the modern conservative movement. He saved talk radio. It's expanded it. And another criticism, completely hypocritically, that they make against Rush Limbaugh is that he was into, quote, conspiracy theories. And because he talked at the time to Christopher Ruddy, who was the author of the book, The Murder of Vince Foster, and other things like that. But that's actually good journalism. I mean, why do we assume that nothing like this could ever happen? The job of our journalists is to investigate instead of mock people who are trying to investigate these things.
I mean, if you took a look at the laundry list of people that died that were connected to some sort of Clinton scandal, I think we'd go a half hour long. It was like up to 30 different people.
Exactly. And media, rather than mocking,
do you remember
during trying to talk about this
during the Seth Rich, during the last Clinton?
Oh yeah,
a young kid who was working for the Democratic National Committee, walking home in a Lilly upscale neighborhood, gets shot out of nowhere. And he
was assassinated. I mean, and there was no robbery. I mean, he just was shot in cold blood.
And they didn't take anything. It's not like, oh, that guy, he owned a mansion and he had 6 Ferraris and he was an Uber billionaire. That's why he killed. There's nothing. And he was in a nice neighborhood. He wasn't in a bad neighborhood. And he was the one that supposedly was giving away the emails. That's
right. He also was involved with the cyber element of the Bernie Sanders campaign. He was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And, he was about to, I mean, there's all this rumors that he might have released all of those emails to WikiLeaks. I think that Julian Assange has implied that.
But Charles, isn't it funny? We're wackos, or conservatives wackos, when there's conspiracies on the left, but yet 4 years we've got these crazy conspiracies from the national media and Hollywood and everywhere else about Russia. And Russia won the
Donald
election.
Trump is spying for Russia. I mean, talk about the biggest conspiracy theory in modern times.
And spent 50,
yeah, please.
Spent $50 million of taxpayers' money chasing people, arresting people.
God.
I mean, things that, arresting Roger Stone that had nothing to do with Russia investigation, and storming his house, teaming up with CNN when they stormed his house, arresting, who was the campaign manager? Paul Manafort in jail, 78-year-old in jail. But had nothing to do with
solitary confinement. Talk about setting a precedent. I mean, it's like a bunch of brown shirts. I'm sorry to be blunt, but showing up for this, 70-year-old man who's never committed a crime with like SWAT teams, breaking down the house.
And you know what they got him on? That he didn't file paperwork when he had business overseas, because you're supposed to file. I didn't know that, because sometimes people ask me to do business overseas, so I have to file certain paperworks, and nobody ever checks on that. It was just
they applauded, and and which of course sets a bad precedent in this country if we're going to get used to that kind of vigorous, law enforcement. That's like what the Gestapo does, and the fact that they would applaud that, in a way, it sets certain bad precedents and put them in place. And now, of course, they're cooking up a conspiracy theory. Donald Trump wanted people to storm the Capitol so he could stay president. I mean, that's worse than the Russia hoax. But they're telling us about conspiracy theories. Meanwhile,
they used, and they keep using this word insurrection. I don't want to use it because I don't want to fall into that trap.
Of course,
it's a bunch of pro-Americans that were rallying. And the left is so smart, they sprinkled Antifa everywhere. And then when they went over to the protests at the Capitol, Antifa started breaking the windows, causing trouble. And then by the time that happened, the local police and other law enforcement started waving people in. So by that time, people were just, if I was standing there and you and I were standing there and we're
waving in, I would have gone in. Sure.
And police waved us in. What makes us think that we're told our whole lives that's the people's house, and we're waved in, and all of a sudden the FBI shows up at a house 6 weeks later and says you're arrested for entering the FBI, a federal crime? I saw 2 MTA workers get arrested. They were retired MTA workers from Long Island who got arrested, and all he did was step into the Capitol, nothing else. Real estate agent of Texas. They were up to about 260 people with these are federal crimes they arrested people for. That went to protest.
The interesting thing about it is that every pro-Trump rally in this country over the past year, throughout 2020, you had Antifa there agitating and committing violence and trying to instigate trouble. Where was Antifa this time? They were nowhere to be seen, right?
Well, Antifa was in the crowd.
That's what I mean. It seems a little suspicious.
Because when I went to the first protest after Trump, after the election, it was about 6. I was leaving about 6 o'clock or so. Was starting to get it, and me and my friend walking north to the park garage. Antifa just came by, about 100 of them, and some of them had fake EMT outfits on, fake journalist outfits. They're really slick. They understand what they do. They put fake journalism coats on. They put fake ambulatory outfits on to pretend they're EMT, and then they have whistles and mace. They're really trained. They're organized. They're just really evil people that are just causing trouble. And that's when they were at that point. They were bicycling, and I would say, where the hell are the cops? They were nowhere to be found. They were like one cop car like 3 blocks behind. It's like they must be told by these mayors, these leftist mayors, to allow them ease up, don't go crazy on them, let them do their thing.
Oh, well, I wonder if any of the people trying to storm the Hatfield Federal Court building in Portland, Oregon, we have a new Attorney General nominee, Merrick Garland, who's saying he wants to go after insurrectionists. He wants to go after people. I wonder if we'll have to watch and see whether or not he goes after them. I have a feeling he won't. But
why aren't they called insurrectionists? You're right.
Well, that's right. I mean, they actually were trying to storm the building and seize the judges. So I guess that you had January 6th, you had basically what I would contend was a civil rights rally by hundreds of thousands of people, very similar to the March on Washington of 1963 with the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. They were standing up for the principle of one man, one vote. They were saying, we want to make sure that we have the integrity of the vote of all Americans of all racial and ethnic backgrounds. And you had the Congress, the joint session of Congress, meeting to ratify the election, in which case the Constitution allows for states to be contested. There were 7 states that were going to be contested. They were about to roll out the contestation in the first of those states, that's being Arizona. They were presenting evidence of irregularities in the election, and it was on television, and it was stunning. And then all of a sudden, the guy with the buffalo suit and all these other clowns dressed in Halloween outfits shut the whole thing down. So how did Trump gain by that? I mean, what do they think? He's going to overthrow, this idiocy. And I see people, responsible people like a former Harvard law professor, Lawrence Tribe, with his tweets that this was an attempt to terrorize and overthrow the government. I mean, the idiocy of this. This is more asinine than that Trump was spying for Russia.
Right. They got a guy in looked like a Halloween costume, sitting on the speaker's chair, and a bunch of like clowns that look like some of them look like planted operations or insurrection. If you told me there were 300 people with rifles and guns storming that Capitol, there's no insurrection. The one person that was killed was a poor woman who was shot, and we never know the truth. And then and the media is not interested to find out how she was killed, right, from a state police officer. And then the other police, I don't know, it was other murder for the police officer, but it was not by any of the protesters. Somehow he had a stroke later on. It was so muzzy.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuzzy how that guy died. We still don't know. They won't tell the truth on how he died. So
they won't. But apparently his mother has said that he was not hit on the head with anything. He went home. He called his brother late that night. He said that he had a headache, but everything was fine. And then unfortunately, he passed away in his sleep.
It's the same rule book they use every time there's one person in a Trump rally that screams a foul mouth or a sexist thing. They just want to paint everybody. Same thing. And this was their way to paint the whole MAGA movement and Trump as evil, white, insurrectionist, trying to overthrow the government. You know what? Every time there's the lefters doing, when they're banging on the Supreme Court for Kavanaugh and trying to get the heck in there and break down a door, it's fine. Or when they're storming the Senate chambers. Remember during the Kavanaugh hearings? They were allowed in by the hundreds, and they were storming into elevators with senators in their face. That was okay. That was called democracy, right? That was called let's fight for our vote and let's defeat Kavanaugh. But all of a sudden now people get waved in and they're getting arrested on federal crimes. I never thought in our country I'd lived this long to see such injustice. This America is not a great place or a good place anymore when I see hundreds of people getting arrested for just entering the Capitol. There was no violence. They didn't hurt anybody. They didn't punch any congressman. They didn't do anything vicious. They didn't steal anything. And they're getting arrested think of this. They're getting arrested on federal crimes just for walking into the Capitol. And I think Brandon Straka, who started this breakaway movement, they arrested.
Walkaway movement.
He never even went in the Capitol. He just screamed. He was just screaming on Facebook and said, "Let's go get him." Something like that. He said they arrested him just for that. Am I right, Mac?
Well, I'm actually, Adam,
he didn't go in.
No, I'm concerned that you and I could get taken down here at YouTube for even discussing this and maybe worse. And, there's an atmosphere. Probably will. Look, I mean, I every day when I'm doing this Monday through Friday live at noon, and I'm determined to continue with it on about 12 different streams simultaneously, figuring that if they take one down, I'll still have the others. But what?
Did you back it up on Rumble and Cloud Hub?
Yeah, I put it back on Rumble and Minds and a bunch of other, and I have a very diverse system so that I'm kind of all over the place and I'm able to preserve this thing. But every day when I turn on YouTube, I wonder whether or not I'm still going to be there. I'm already getting notices. This one's been restricted to younger people. I mean, I've been, I was demonetized. So, I don't know what's going to happen. But I guess that in this atmosphere of censorship, President Trump, of course, has been censored. He's been removed from Twitter. Where do we go from here? I mean, here we are now at a time when President Trump delivered a major speech at the CPAC. Brilliant speech, tremendous speech, where he touched on all these issues, and it is being whitewashed off of the mainstream media. You're a media guy, so I'm asking you as a PR person, what do we do and where do we stand now?
I mean, we continue to fight. I was at CPAC, and you know, there's a lot of enthusiasm. The place was packed. The only thing, they were a little bit of obnoxious tyrants. The Hyatt staff with the masks, but I kind of understand now because they were being attacked on Twitter by Democrats and the mob, they had a boycott Hyatt trending, all because conservatives have the gall to hold the press conference. But I didn't know what to think yesterday, and then I went out for a bit for a fundraiser. I came back, and there were thousands of people outside of the Orlando Convention Center, thousands with flags. I said, this is more than rallies that I wouldn't go to. It was unbelievable. These people traveled from different states to come to sit in front of the convention. They don't even meet Trump. They just come there to stand on grass with flags, selling swag, standing there, trucks driving by. And I'm not talking thousands of people. It was everywhere. It was like, and he lost. It was just unbelievable what a movement he created. And I wasn't sure I didn't know how many people were going to come. You never know if they're deflated. But it shows that the MAGA movement is still strong. What Trump created is still strong. They're more determined than ever. They're finding alternative channels to listen to, alternative media. So that's got to keep up the fight, because that's what else do we do? And people in the conservative movement are fighters. It's showed by CPAC too. They were all there. People were uplifted, and people don't really, we vent as much as we can, but then we get back and we fight, right?
I mean, I was my one experience. I went to the New Hampshire primary, and the city was packed with Trump supporters. They were, he was had a whole convention event. He came up there, he spoke. The Democrat. I mean, the main venue for the primary is usually the Holiday Inn in Manchester, where I went, and you could have heard crickets. I mean, the Democrats are sitting on grumbling. I mean, there's nothing to talk about. And there's Pete Buttigieg and everyone else. They're all there. Nobody's coming over. Everybody was focused on Trump. So, the whole thing is very suspicious. We can't talk about the actual election because I will be banned. But what I think we can say is that it's true, is that there is a vigorous and vital and organic pro-Trump movement. About the last poll done showed that about 85% of Republicans do believe that there were improprieties during the last election. You have a lot of independents who are now shifting in that direction. Now, I'm not here to challenge the election. The election happened, and I recognize Biden and Harris as president and vice president. They've been inaugurated. That's it. So, but the problem is, going forward, we're going to have to address the issue of how to reform our voting system in a way that this doesn't happen again. Because if we don't, we're never going to see another election that's open.
I mean, if we couldn't win and we had the presidency, the Justice Department, we probably didn't have the Justice Department, but we had the presidency and we had Senate and we had, the levers of government, and we lost now, which is think what they can do in 4 years from now. But, seeing how strong his movement was yesterday, all those turncoats from Congress and Senate that voted for this impeachment, and which is a sham of impeachment.
Oh, they're finished.
That said he caused when we watch that YouTube, and the funny thing is even hard at times to find his rally because YouTube is taking it down. But if you watch the speech over and over again, he said, "Go over there peacefully." What does peacefully mean? In their words, they cut it up. But every one of those, I don't care what state it is, every one of those people that voted for impeachment for Trump should get primaried, and I guarantee they'd get crushed.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they're done.
Primary.
And even Mitt Romney now has admitted that. He's like, I assume that Trump, not that we know whether he's going to run, but that if he does, he'll win easily. I mean, that's coming from him. And then he also referred to his wing of the Republican Party as extremely tiny, and they've been.
We don't know, but I'm sure Mitt Romney's office probably gets phone calls in the hundreds telling him to use a turncoat. So,
and I think that somebody like Lynn Cheney, they figure they're going to be all these whole line of Republicans who are anti-Trump. They're going to get up on CNN and the media, and they'll be brought in as experts and pundits, and they're going to have a wonderful career in the media as they always have. for this past 4 years. So, Adam, you are in the epicenter of media for conservative ideals and conservative figures. Where do we go from here in terms of getting platform? Do we have to go all alternative? I mean, are we going to all go to Rumble now, or what's going to happen?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I see Don Jr. posting on Rumble all the time. But you know what happens? We say, are we really? Oh my God, we got to go. But you know, technology moves so fast this day and age, right? This like you just watch the stock market, GameStop, how fast they took that GameStop quickly to the stratosphere, and they had to stop them. But in apps and technology in our country, things get built so fast and move so fast. But I'm sure it's only been a month and a half. Whatever Trump decides to jump in, the app, the platform, it will blow up overnight, and people will be following in the millions. So, you know, just watch. And I'm sure Rumble's growing, and look at Parler's got 20-something million people. So
and Gab,
everybody pretty much knows on the conservative side, Republican side, how biased these platforms have become. And now we got to give credit to Trump because he fought the media and he fought the tech industry. But I'm a little sad. I'm a little, you know, one of the things he didn't do, he should have done something when he's president, whether it's through executive order or fighting more. He had to do something against the platforms.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they have a monopolistic power, and now that they have their regime in place, it's kind of an informal collusion, if you will, and I mean that word in the broad sense, between the big tech and the government, and that's what fascism is. I mean, if you look at Mussolini, he didn't have a Congress, or he didn't have a parliament. He had a council of corporations. It was formal. And those corporations held monopoly power in Italy, and that they work hand in glove with the dictator and his oligarchs to run that country. And that's what we have now. It's not like that. I'm not saying it's outright fascism, but I'm saying that this sort of cozy relationship between big tech and the top 1% corporations and this government and their minions is de facto fascistic, at least in spirit.
Right.
So, I mean, look, I mean, I think that I've heard rumors that Don Jr. has had conversations with Elon Musk about setting up an alternative network. There's rumors that Trump is interested in doing this. He is not leaving the Republican Party, which I think is good, because the Republican Party is going to become the Freedom Party. I mean, they're absorbing these principles. And I hope that they unify around them and even bring along some of the rhinos like McConnell and others who want to have some level of credibility and survivability, and that they look good. But the problem remains the electronic voting and the ID and these things. They have to be addressed, or we're not going to get anywhere.
Right. 100%. You know, that's like, just like I said before, the technology moves so fast. If Elon Musk, all it takes is a couple of Elon Musk, right?
Oh yeah.
Create a platform, and overnight, conservatives have something fiery to fight back on. Right now, we're controlled by the big tech, and not only are they biased, they shut down thousands. I mean, for all the big voices we hear get shut down, there's thousands upon thousands across every state in America that get shut down, that don't get a voice, don't have attention, but they've been deplatformed, shut down. I have a client now. He started an alternative to Facebook, ourfreedombook.com, ourfreedombook.com, like a little alternative to Facebook. And I said, why'd you do this? And he had money in his other career. And he said, I did this because my wife was shut down. And not only was her personal Facebook shut down, but her business too, because she posted some pro-Trump stuff. So I wanted to start my own platform. So nobody ever heard of him. Nobody ever heard of his wife, but just another example. She was just shut down on Facebook just for posting some pro-Trump messages.
Oh, it's like, it's well, I mean, we could talk about that. I'm sure you can, and I certainly can. What the last 4 years have been like, being pro-Trump in Massachusetts, where I am in Boston. So this website is it's called Our Freedom Book.
Ourfreedombook.com.
That's interesting. I'm looking at it right now.
Our Freedom Book Group.
This is great. I'm going to join it right after I talk with you. And I think that we have to kind of work together in these multimedia facilities. I'm getting involved in as many as I can, and I'm doing the show every day. And I think that everybody can do their part. The other thing I'm trying to encourage people to do, and I've done it in the past, is run for local office. You can do it and you can win. You know, you're a retired person, you're a housewife, you're a teenager, you know, you're an empty nester, whatever it is, you have a little time, you can run for city council, for local state rep, local state senate. And you might find that the person in there has been in there for a decade and has never even had any opposition. So you can do it and you can win, and with a little, not even a lot of money either. So
Right.
you know, there are things we can do to essentially, you know, revigorate and take back our freedoms and our way of life, and to contribute. And it's interesting to do it. It's fun. It's purposeful. So I urge people to do it. So Adam, what else are you working on over there?
Just got back from CPAC. Just
Yeah.
You know, had a bunch of clients there. I'll shoot you them a couple. They knew
Thank you.
some interesting
I'm
ones.
going to go through that list. I hope to interview most of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you a couple of them now. I got another young guy, Eric Finman, who just created ourfreedomphone.com, Our Freedom Phone. He created a phone for freedom.
Excellent.
This kid's a Bitcoin millionaire. He started when he was 12 years old in Bitcoin. He's now 22. His Bitcoins are worth about 20-something million. So,
Interesting.
and
I know
I
nothing about
I have
Bitcoin.
to introduce you to Dave Lipsky. He's the other one that founded the alternative to Facebook, an alternative to TikTok, an alternative to a crowdfunding site. Because you know, a lot of people are banned from crowdfunding sites. They can't even raise money too. So
Right. In fact, they can't even get PayPal.
yeah.
You know,
So
in fact,
now,
Gab, they removed it. They can't even, if you want to get a Gab subscription, you have to send them a check. It's almost like we're going back. Pretty soon we'll be back like in Boston Commons, standing up there with a bullhorn. But, you know, it can be done. You cannot suppress free speech or freedom.
and now I have, so yeah, that's what I'm working on. So
All right, great.
thanks.
Listen, Adam, please send me the information. I hope to have all of them on my show. And listen, I really appreciate you joining me today.